When I first saw Snowy, she was just a tiny ball of white fur curled in the corner of a cardboard box outside a pet shop. The world around me was busy, that morning, cars rushing by, people talking loudly into their phones, a city too distracted to notice a trembling puppy trying to keep herself warm. But I noticed her. I stopped, crouched down, and for the first time in a long time, I smiled. Her fur was pure white, her eyes soft and unsure. She looked at me like she was asking, "Can I trust you?" I reached out my hand, slowly, and she sniffed my fingers. Her little pink tongue brushed against my skin, and that was it. I didn't even think twice. I scooped her up, wrapped her in my scarf, and whispered, "You're coming home with me, Snowy." I didn't know it then, but that tiny puppy would become my reason to wake up every morning, my comfort during lonely nights, and eventually, the one who'd teach me how to say goodbye with love. Snowy was more than a pet, she was family. Every morning, she'd sit by my bed, wagging her tail so hard that her whole body moved with it. She had this little habit: if I didn't wake up soon enough, she'd nudge my face with her cold nose, then lick my cheeks until I laughed. I couldn't ever stay in bed with Snowy around. She followed me everywhere, into the kitchen, the garden, even the bathroom if I forgot to close the door. She was curious about everything. The sound of the blender made her tilt her head, the sight of falling leaves made her jump and chase shadows. I used to joke that she was my shadow, but brighter. In the evenings, when I came home tired from work, she'd run to the door before I even turned the key. Her excitement never faded, no matter how many days passed. And when I sat on the couch, she'd curl up beside me, resting her head on my lap, sighing softly as if she was saying, "You're home now, everything's okay." Months passed, and Snowy grew. Not much though, she stayed small, her paws delicate, her body soft and warm. People often stopped us in the park just to admire her. "She's so pretty," they'd say, and I'd smile proudly. But more than pretty, Snowy was kind. There was a little boy who lived down the street, always sitting alone on his front steps. One afternoon, Snowy pulled at her leash and ran to him. I panicked at first, but she only sat beside him and rested her paw on his leg. The boy smiled, just a little, and stroked her head. His mother told me later he had been struggling since his father passed away. Somehow, Snowy made him smile again. That's who she was, love without words. She didn't need to speak to make people feel something. She just existed, and that was enough. Life was simple, beautiful, and soft, until the day it wasn't. It was a Sunday morning. The sky was bright, the air smelled of sunlight and jasmine. I remember thinking it would be a perfect day for a walk. I grabbed Snowy's leash, and as soon as she saw it, she barked excitedly and spun in circles. I laughed, kneeling down to clip the leash to her collar. We walked through the neighborhood, past the old bakery where the smell of fresh bread drifted out, past the row of trees where birds sang. Everything felt perfect. Snowy was happy, chasing butterflies, tugging slightly at her leash as if the world wasn't big enough for her joy. When we reached the park, I let her off the leash. She loved running freely there, her fur glowing under the sunlight like a small cloud come to life. I sat on a bench, watching her chase after leaves. For a while, I forgot everything else. Then, it happened. It was so fast that I didn't even understand it at first. Snowy saw something, a red ball rolling toward the street. She dashed after it, tiny paws pounding the grass. I shouted her name. "Snowy, stop." But she didn't stop. She ran, her tail wagging, her little body full of energy and innocence. Then came the screech. The sound of brakes. A thud that split the world in half. Everything froze. My heart stopped. My body went numb. I ran. My legs didn't feel like my own. When I reached her, she was lying on the road, still, her white fur stained with something dark. The driver jumped out of the car, pale and shaking, saying he hadn't seen her. But I couldn't hear him. I dropped to my knees, lifted her gently, and whispered, "Snowy, no, no, baby, please." Her eyes were half open, her breaths shallow. She tried to move, but I held her still. "It's okay," I told her, my voice breaking. "You're okay, Snowy. I'm here." Her tail twitched once. Then, stillness. At the vet, they told me she had internal injuries. They'd do everything they could. I waited in the cold hallway, hands trembling, feeling like a part of me had already been taken away. Hours passed. The vet came out, his expression soft but heavy. "She's alive," he said, "but very weak. The next few days will be critical." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "Can I see her?" When I walked into that small room, Snowy was lying on a blanket, tiny body connected to tubes. But when she saw me, her tail moved, just a little. I sat beside her, stroking her head gently. "You're my brave girl," I whispered. "You have to stay with me, okay?" She looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw love. Pure, endless love. I stayed there all night. I didn't leave her side, not once. The days that followed were quiet. Every morning, I'd visit the clinic. Snowy would try to sit up, wagging her tail when she saw me. She couldn't bark anymore, but she didn't need to. Her eyes spoke everything. Sometimes I sang to her, the little song I used to hum when she was a puppy. "You are my sunshine," I whispered, and her ears twitched. I smiled through tears. The vet said she might not recover fully, but that didn't matter to me. I just wanted her to live, to breathe, to look at me, to be here. Slowly, she began to improve. The day she stood up on her own again, I cried. The nurses clapped. "She's a fighter," one of them said. And she was. I brought her home 2 weeks later. She was weaker, slower, but her spirit was still bright. I made a small bed for her near the window where the sunlight poured in. She'd lie there and watch the birds outside, tail gently wagging. Life didn't go back to what it was, but it was still life. And I cherished every second. But time. It doesn't stop, even when we wish it would. Months passed, and Snowy began to struggle again. The vet said her injuries had caused lasting damage to her heart. There wasn't much we could do. That night, I sat with her in the quiet room. The moonlight fell across her fur, making her look almost glowing. I stroked her head and whispered, "Thank you, Snowy. For loving me. For choosing me." She rested her head on my lap, eyes half closed, breathing slow but peaceful. I wanted to freeze that moment forever. When dawn came, she was gone. Just like that, peacefully, quietly, in my arms. I held her close, tears falling on her fur. She looked like she was sleeping. And maybe in some way she was, dreaming of fields and sunshine, of butterflies and open skies. The house felt empty after that. Too quiet. I'd wake up expecting to hear her paws on the floor, her soft bark by the door. But there was nothing. I couldn't bring myself to put away her things. Her little leash hung by the door, her toys were still scattered in the living room. Sometimes, I'd find one and hold it, as if it still carried her warmth. Grief is strange. It doesn't leave all at once. It stays, slowly fading like the echo of a song you don't want to end. But in time, something changed. I began to dream of her. Not the moment of the accident, not the pain, but her running through the park, her fur bright under the sun, her tail wagging like before. In those dreams, she was free again. And when I woke up, instead of crying, I smiled. Because even though she was gone, she hadn't really left. One day, months later, I went back to the park. The same one where everything had happened. I sat on the same bench. The air smelled the same, but I was different. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Hi, Snowy." A soft breeze brushed against my face, warm and gentle, like a kiss. And for a moment, I felt her beside me. It wasn't sadness anymore, it was love. A quiet, eternal kind of love that doesn't fade, even after goodbye. Before I left, I placed a small white flower on the grass near where she used to play. "Run free, my little angel," I whispered. "I'll see you again someday." Now, whenever I see a small white puppy on the street, my heart still aches, but it also smiles. Because somewhere, I know Snowy is happy. She's running through endless fields, chasing butterflies, wagging her tail at the sky. She taught me something no human ever could, that love is not measured by time, but by the moments we share. That even the smallest heart can leave the biggest mark. And though she's gone, she's still with me, in every sunrise, every soft breeze, every dream. Because love like that never dies. It only changes shape. Snowy was my beginning and my goodbye. She came into my life as a tiny spark and left as a piece of light that never fades. And even now, when I whisper her name into the quiet night, I swear I can still hear the faint sound of her tail wagging, somewhere beyond the stars.